I said I wanted this without pickles.
Well, that's not how you ordered it, ma'am.
I said no pickles, you buck-toothed imbecile. Hi, I'm Austin's Animals, collecting all things furry. And today, look, it's the action figure from the opening video. Yes, I'm finally getting around to this one. The beautiful Amazonian cat warrior of Zynda from Realm of the Claw. This is a cool one. This is the line of figures that is definitively, without a doubt, furry. I knew I was going to get to it at some point, so why not now talk about this awesome action figure. Zynda was released in the Realm of the Claw action figure line back in 2001. These figures were sold at Toys R Us, aimed at an older boys to teenage collector's market. What's cool about this figure is that she isn't a statue, even though she looks, pretty statuesque. There's a lot of cool articulation and playability here, and this figure kind of straddles the line between a toy figure and a collector figure, which is a cool thing and a bit of a problem we'll get to. So first, Realm of the Claw, an action figure line created by the legendary filmmaker Stan Winston. Stan Winston's made some iconic 80s monsters and movie puppets, but always wanted to make his own IP, so he created Realm of the Claw as a toy line. Like all great toy lines, you have the good guys, you have the bad guys. Not a lot of story on the back of the packaging, just telling you, who will rule the animal kingdom. And I do like that it's vague like that. The character designs are awesome. You can kind of I could see a kid, using his own imagination to put into these characters. Now, there was later a comic book that, from what I have heard, has some unbelievably complicated and confusing backstory. I will get to that comic eventually, but just reviewing the toy line as its own independent thing is just a cool line of figures. Now, Zynda comes with a trading card here that features some nice, looks like a paint over of the figure, pretty nice. And on the back of the packaging gives us some details about Zynda. But all this card really says is that Zynda is a stealth spy, over and over again. Which I can believe. She's very limber and tall and looks pretty flexible like a cat. Zynda comes packed in with a gorgeous base that might be as better, if not better, than the figure itself. It's this really cool castle-like entrance with an animal head that makes for a good display with any furry action figure. This is just such a cool stand. She also comes with two swords. They're pretty basic looking fantasy swords, nothing special, but at least you get two of them, so you can put one on Zynda and then, stick another one on any fantasy figure you have that needs a spare sword. Zynda's sculpt is absolutely gorgeous, as expected for something from Stan Winston. The head is very sly and playful. She's got this ornate armor, shoulder pads and breastplate that's very intricate and sexy and cool. She's got all of these straps and buckles everywhere. The figure is super asymmetrical, which I know some people don't like that design. It's kind of McFarlane-esque, but I don't mind it. You can tell Zynda's been in a lot of combat and is just a fierce warrior. From the back, we get a better look at the detailed fur texture that's on Zynda. I love that not only do we have different hues in the fur that kind of goes from a orange to yellow, very fall color look, but the fur itself is individually sculpted. You can tell this sculpt was made out of an original clay model, not a digital sculpt. Not just because it's an older figure, before digital sculpts became the norm, but you can see each stroke of fur where the sculptor, Stan Winston, cut it in with clay. Now, the figure itself, despite being a beautiful sculpture, has some awesome articulation. We've got a head that's on a dumbbell joint. We've got mostly swivel, but I love how the swivel joints are incorporated into the armor. So there's only articulation cuts where Zynda has pieces of armor so that you don't see the joints. Now this does create asymmetrical articulation. You see the arms there don't quite line up, and sometimes you really have to play with this figure to get her in certain poses because the articulation is not flush with one another. They're all ball joints in the hips, but they're nicely, they're blocked by the skirt, which is very clever. The only real visible joint is in the feet. You're going to see here in a second. The feet have giant pinholes that are visible, but I think that's okay because these feet are a central point of the figure, and to get her to stand, you really have to, maneuver these feet. Now, despite being such a tall, asymmetrical, limber, slender figure, Zynda can actually stand on her own without any trouble, which I think is amazing. You look at a figure like this and you think, that's not going to stand on her own. She even comes with a stand that holds her up. But no, she can stand there just fine, which is great. I was going to give this articulation a rave review, and then I discovered afterwards there was even more articulation, like a cut in the belly there that you can't see because of, a buckle she's kind of got. And then we have the tail. So when filming this video, I thought the tail had a swivel joint, and it does have a joint in the tail. It's just not movable. It's glued in place. It's like they wanted that tail to move at some point, and they decided at last second, just glue it on, don't attach it, and it pops right off. So let's cut to this shot here. On the left is Zynda, on the right is a statue of a sexy bunny. That's a statue. Zynda is an action figure and marketed as such. She was sold at Toys R Us as an action figure. This figure goes out of its way to tell you that it's an action figure. Even, compared with other adult collector figures, so everything in the shot right now is kind of an older collector-based figure. They all have nice and solid joints. And that's the hiccup with this Zynda figure, is that the articulation feels a little iffy, a little flimsy, particularly the head and the tail that snapped off. Now this one I'm holding here, this is a Hasbro figure that's all articulation. But even this guy, this is a McFarlane Toys figure. McFarlane makes, pretty collectible adult toys, and even he has a tail that is very thin and can be moved and played without any trouble. This Tiger figure here, this one is from, I believe, Schleich, and he has a very thin, brittle tail that can be moved. I didn't play rough with this figure, I just moved the tail a little bit and it just fell right off. Again, it could just be because it's an older toy and the glue wore off. So the head pops off, and I was really nervous about popping this head off after the tail. It did require a little bit of, muscle, a little bit of elbow grease, but it pops off, and you get this angry head that might be the angriest cat snarl I've ever seen. She looks like an angry DMV instructor. Well, did I pass my driver's test? No, you struck an Ewok. Yup. Nup. Realm of the Claw is a cool toy line, but this character in particular reminded me a lot of a certain vixen from one of my favorite video games, Crystal from Star Fox. The game just turned 20 years old, and I've wanted an action figure of this beautiful sexy vixen since I played the game at 8 years old. I honestly can blame a lot of who I am on this character and this game, so she's very near and dear to me. Now, Star Fox has actually had a decent amount of toys in the past, some of which I've talked about on this channel, but they've never made a toy of Crystal, the most popular character. I thought Zynda would be a good stand-in, but unfortunately, she does not scale with any of the Star Fox figures they've made. The Jakks Pacific Star Fox, which I want to note is a pretty terrible toy, so we'll just toss that aside, and then the super cool Fortnite Star Fox tribute figure. I would have loved this one to be in scale with Zynda, but unfortunately that is not the case. So unless I'm doing some sort of forced perspective photo, they're gonna have to be separated for now. So the hunt for a perfect Crystal stand-in continues to this day. Despite being over 20 years old, Zynda isn't showing her age. She's still a great sculpted action figure, and even though examples of this figure may have glue that falls off, such as the tail, or some of the rubber pieces easily disintegrate, she's still worth adding to your collection. It's not often we get furry action figures that are truly anthropomorphic. Zynda incorporates great cat-like design, not only with her gorgeous fur and head sculpt, but even the legs have some awesome digitigrade style to them, where they look like a real animal. Even with the tail falling off, I was still impressed by this action figure. When I bought Zynda, I wasn't expecting her to have so much playability and heft. I thought this would be a fragile, statue-like figure. But Zynda's a cool figure that's fun to play with. Now that pretty much wraps up our discussion on this figure. What a mature and insightful discussion on an adult collector figure. Now I have mature things to do. This is Star Fox. Star Fox, I need your help. Don't worry, Crystal will save you and save the galaxy from Andros. Pew, 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 yeah, pew, yeah. Look at me, I'm an adult collector. Pew, yeah.